the year's funniest fun. That can't be right. It's a ghost-to-ghost hookup? At last, a woman you can see through. And boy, what fun. She's nothing but a nothing. But what a kick you get when you see her. Welcome back to Cinema Revisited. We're continuing our series following the classic Universal monster films.
Horror films, supposedly.
This
one was weird.
This one was weird. We are continuing our series going through all of the classic Universal monsters, and tonight's film was none other than the 1940 comedy, The Invisible Woman, made by Universal, featuring, similar to our favorite so far monster, the Invisible Man, but without any of the maniacal monologues, diabolical anything, or horror.
That song was weird.
This film's so weird. How weird was it? Well, let's go ahead and we're going to recap the plot here for you so that you know kind of what we are dealing with here if you have not seen 1940s The Invisible Woman. Take it away, DJ.
Okay, this thing is a mess. Okay, so the basic idea of this one is it's the Invisible Man again. It's a professor creates invisible formula. It's a different professor, an older guy. That's like the whole thing. The other two films up to this one have a plot. This one is professor turns woman invisible. She gets back at her old boss and then falls in love with the guy who hired the professor to do it. And it's a slapstick comedy.
And it has like the mob in it.
Yeah, I'm oh man.
So
it's hard to summarize this thing because nothing happens for like the first 3/4 of the film. It's literally just the professor like trying to show off his invention and unsuccessfully. Shenanigans ensue. And then suddenly at the end of it, a whole bunch of stuff happens all at once. And then it just suddenly ends. That's the summary. That's literally the whole film. Professor makes girl invisible, and then it ends.
Pretty much. Like, the professor makes the girl invisible. When he makes the girl invisible, the mob catches on to the fact that he is looking for people to turn invisible. So the mob boss, who's hiding in Mexico, decides that he needs the invisible machine so that he can be back in the United States, which he misses. So the mob takes the machine, eventually ends up kidnapping the professor and the woman who can turn invisible, and shenanigans further ensue. It is really one of the jankiest plots. It is not like it is very hard to.
It's incoherent, incohesive, and wild, and it's hard to describe. But we wanted to start giving you guys like we had some feedback that context was good, so we wanted to give some context. But the first film we decided to do this for had to be whatever this was. So
the film that barely had a story and was mainly made for visual gags as compared to like visual horror spectacle. This is the first film that's literally made to be a comedy, which is so strange considering it's a Universal classic monster.
And it's The Invisible Man, which the first two were very much psychological thrillers. It's a very different pacing. If you were going to make one to a comedy, Frankenstein or The Mummy actually would have been a better candidate for it. This is an odd one to choose because those ones had very much a physical comedy you could have done to them and made it work. This is a weird choice.
It's very, very strange. It's slapstick and it's
rough.
Cheesy.
Let's get into it.
All right.
We're going to talk about this to death. But
all right.
Let's do good, bad, ugly, and iconic so we can tear this thing apart.
We'll talk good, bad, ugly, and iconic, starting with the good, DJ. What is the good of this film?
The Invisible Woman. She was fun, whimsical, entertaining. She gets a little bit of the crazy, but the crazy that she has isn't the psychological crazy like the old Invisible Man. She's just kind of like impassioned, and the invisibility for her, like strength, it blocks all her inhibitions.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, they just went crazy. She just, the things that tell you maybe you shouldn't do that, turn off.
Yeah.
And all the things that she's ever wanted to do inside of her head, get back at her boss, drink, woozy in front of a guy. She just, all of her inhibitions go away.
Yeah.
So it's a different set of symptoms, which is actually interesting. I like that. That idea of the formula doesn't always just turn them into a psychopath. Sometimes they just lose their ability to say no. So that was good. I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely probably a highlight of the film, I would say. I agree with you. I think the good in this film is the Invisible Woman. She had most of the good scenes, obviously. She's the main character. She probably had some of the best humor, I would say.
Yes.
Like, some of it's a little bit cheesy, but
almost everything she says or does, that's the most exciting and humorous parts of the film. The parts where I was engaged in was when she's speaking or when it's focused on her.
Yeah.
When she's the focus, it's fun. When everybody else is on there, it's boring.
I agree.
The professor's fun when it's them together.
At the end of the film.
He's not as much fun early on, but the two of them pull off each other really well. So every other character is more interesting when they interact with her.
Okay. Yeah, I agree 100%. The good definitely is the Invisible Woman. How about the bad? What is the bad for you?
The bad is the plot. It's messy. The pacing is awful. It's just hard to follow. There's too much going on. Mm-hmm. They've got the professor storyline, which takes way too long to get anywhere, and then they throw the mob in, and then it takes a hard right turn, and it gets weird, which is funny because some of the best scenes of the movie are at the end when she's like attacking them, but up till that point, it's just bad.
Yeah,
the plot pacing is bad.
Yeah, I agree that is bad. For me though, I think the bad part, I'd say the butler. His over-the-top slapstick just kind of gets old after the third or fourth stunt. And it's the entire film that he's doing that.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where I'm not like huge into slapstick to begin with, but a little bit is fun. This was just too much to be fun, in my opinion. So I'd say the bad is just the over-the-top slapstick, specifically in regards to the butler.
Yeah, that was a little insane.
Yeah.
Well, another one that I add that too, is that all the characters are slapsticky.
They're all slapsticky.
Like there's no serious, it's all like the butler and the goons and the professor. There's a lot of tomfoolery and rather than having one set of characters. So it's a little much.
Yeah. Okay, how about the ugly of this film?
Oh,
you kind of touched a little bit on my ugly, but
honestly, for me, the thing that I think was like the ugliest, honestly, is that, and this is kind of a weird word to encapsulate, but basically 3/4 of this film don't matter.
It's fair.
What's ugly about it is like so much of the film is just forgettable and doesn't matter. It's just a whole. I mean, I'm talking like the beginning up until the girl shows up, and then like so much of that just doesn't even need to be in the film. You have like an hour and 20 minutes film, and only 20 minutes of your film is interesting.
Yeah,
that is ugly. It's just kills the entire mood, the pacing, the film. It's shot to death because so much of the film doesn't matter. And I'm not talking about like the pacing or the thing. I'm talking about like plot points or character dialoguing and slapstick that just doesn't mean anything, doesn't lead to anything, doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
There's so many gags and stuff that fall flat because there's no stakes involved, or they don't. The butler thing was a big part of it, but the goons, the fighting, like it was the parts that were interesting, where she's fighting the her boss. That was funny and interesting, but it didn't matter to anything going on.
Right.
It doesn't matter to the plot at all. It's a side event, and it's made one of the strongest points of the film, and it's hilarious, and it's showing kind of her character, but nothing happens of it. Those characters never show up again for the rest of the film.
Right.
And then a whole nother plot and shoes later that doesn't relate to the beginning of the film. It's like 3 different films jakied together and none of them quite work. It's ugly.
That is 100% an ugly thing about this film.
I guess if I had to encapsulate one word, it's cut. It's cut poorly.
It's fair.
It's cut poorly. It just doesn't make any sense the way it's put together.
Yeah. For me, probably the ugly part of it, there's like twofold for me, I guess. I have 2 things specifically that are kind of ugly about this film. First of all, it's just, we've talked about tone in previous episodes regarding the Universal monster films where they have some humor points to it, but sometimes they go over the top with it. Sometimes they
Frankenstein did that a little bit.
Yeah.
And the first Mummy actually had,
Son of Frankenstein specifically had really,
that one was a really weird tonal choice.
Yeah. So I would say that like tone is ugly in this film because it's a monster movie. I understand the popularity of the character, the popularity of the premise, and wanting to do something a little different, but
I'd be okay with them doing a comedy with it. It's just not a good comedy is the problem.
Yeah, it's just over the top humor. Like, I'm sure that this was rip-roaringly hilarious in 1940, but
I don't know.
It's just
like I've seen other comedies from that era, and they were a lot funnier than this.
Yeah, it feels very tired very quickly.
That's something I have seen. I've seen a lot of musicals and comedies from the 1930s and 40s, and they are a lot more entertaining than this. Damsel in Distress, that was 1941, I think. Very similar time frame as this. Hilarious movie.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of slapstick, comedy, humor, stuff like that. This doesn't land. Mm-hmm. I think it suffers from it doesn't know what it wants to be, so it doesn't end up being anything.
Yeah, it just feels like nonsensical.
Yes.
It like I said, the humor after a while just kind of starts feeling tired.
Yeah.
Because
well, the funniest parts of the film are the parts that I think were not necessarily meant to be funny.
It's true.
Like there's these parts like they're suddenly really it's a slapstick comedy world, and then they're suddenly really serious, and then you laugh so hard because you're like, that's silly, that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But that's not because the film is doing a good job of putting it together. It's because the rest of it's so bad that stands out.
Yeah.
These 5 jokes are hilarious because the rest of the movie isn't. Is not a positive thing about your film.
No. The other thing that's ugly about this film, so obviously like the fact that it's a comedy I think is kind of ugly because it's supposed to be a Universal monster movie. This is the first time that they completely jumped the genre.
Yeah.
I think that's ugly. I think that really affects overall like historically where this film is.
Well, and later on, there's going to be the Abbott and Costello ones, which are just are humors.
Because it has Abbott and Costello,
and it's parodying itself.
Yeah,
this one doesn't feel like it should have been a parody of itself. It feels like it should have been in line with the other films. But
yeah.
I applaud them for trying something different. But you didn't do it well though, so it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good to try something new if it's bad.
Yeah. But the other ugly thing for this film is I'd say the forced romance and the relationship shift.
Oh.
It's very abrupt in this movie where it goes from, oh, that silly girl, she's going to be the ruin of my experiment, to I got you, girl, you're my wing woman.
I got it. Like them falling for each other. But the problem is he's a playboy.
Yeah.
He finds her mystifying. I get that. But they don't give any time to develop it. They just shoot forward like suddenly. And when I didn't feel it unbelievable when she fell in the water, it's like, I fell for you. Like, I get it. But at the same time, it then immediately jumps to them having a child. That was jarring.
Well, it jumps to them having a child, but the other thing is
they didn't have enough chemistry yet to like, yeah, I get it's years later, obviously, because the child's already born. But the problem is you skipped a whole lot of development to make that relationship believable. Mm-hmm. And suddenly there's a kid and you're like, okay, they were playful with each other and a little romantic, but marriage and a child seems a jumping of the shark from where they were without some kind of cue as to how they got there.
Yeah.
That doesn't track. I need to see some character development to believe that. Because he's thrown away every woman he's ever had. Why is suddenly this one the one?
Yeah, it's just one of those things where their relationship dynamic shifts so abruptly and violently.
Yeah.
In no time.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I believe it from her, but not from him. That's the thing.
Well, because she's like getting rid of her inhibitions and stuff like that, so like you could kind of go off that angle. But the thing is,
and she was struck by him, and it's new to her, and she's excited. It's exciting. Him, she's more interesting, but I don't believe that he's suddenly going to throw away his floozy ways just for her. There needs to be some more to it than that for me to believe it.
Yeah.
He's not gotten away from it before. There was a picture. Remember the piano with the picture frames all over it? Yeah, there's a scene where there's picture frames of all the women that he's gotten like sued by for like all his Playboy nature. And I'm like, and he's settling down for this one. Just, I don't buy it.
Well, no, but the thing is, even her like falling for him doesn't really make a lot of sense because she straight up points, he's a pig. He is known for being a playboy. He is known for philandering. He is known for this crap.
Yes, but so all the other women on that table knew that too.
Well, but she's supposed to be different.
That's what they all think. They all think they're the different one. That's why I believe it from her. It's her first love. It's not his. That's my point. Like, she might... she's a little more clever than those other girls, too. She's shown to be really clever and stuff like that. So that could entice him. But I just need to see that. Like, I just don't believe... the film doesn't show enough of their dynamic between each other for me to believe that without a little bit more. Because I need to see what she did to, like, get him to, like, stop being an idiot.
I guess.
I just need to see it. I need to see what... Because I don't care how amazing and smart and wonderful she is. I'm sure some of those other women were too. He is a Playboy moron, and I imagine he would screw it up somehow. I need to know how he didn't screw it up. The suspicion of disbelief isn't there.
I guess. So, going off of the uglies, though, what of this film would you say is actually iconic?
The special effects. Despite everything else, the invisibility is actually better than it was in the last one. Not as I would say not as good as the first one, but that's because the first one was very careful on how it showed it.
Yeah.
But this one, there's one moment in the entire movie where you see her arms in like some kind of a suit that shows the invisibility. But other than that, you barely see somewhat of a silhouette, which if someone were invisible, you would see. You would see a blurring of like where the person is. That's all you see. Barely a silhouette. And when some of the scenes where she's putting the dress on and she's putting the different clothing and stuff on, they go wild with it. The first two, they were really careful about not just a head wrap or... in the second one, they barely show him invisible at all. He's mostly wrapped up in something.
Yeah.
Or completely invisible. There's not a lot of transitioning. This one had her transition to in and out of clothing like 20 times. And it looks so good. It's impressive what they were able to do. It looks like they were showing it off. Like, look, she keeps her wardrobes constantly changing. Look how isn't that so freaking cool?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'd probably go with the credits. The beginning credits are a bit iconic because
they did like a cold open rather than
instead of doing like a straight flat, here's the title card, here's the cast, here's all this stuff, they actually do like a film part where it shows
her the silhouette of the thing and turning invisible.
So I would say that that's kind of iconic because that's kind of moved into like modern filmmaking and stuff like that. We don't do the placard and here's all the credits. It's usually the movie starts and you start having the text and stuff, but the movie has kind of started already.
Right.
So I would say that's kind of iconic because it's moved into
modern cinema and it's unique. Yep, exactly.
All right, we have done the good, the bad, the ugly, the iconic. DJ, what would you do to remake this film if you were given control and told that you had to make a Invisible Woman movie?
Okay. This is actually the part I was really looking forward to because I had an easy way to fix this. The biggest thing about this is I have a trademark to make. When I make it a horror or make it a comedy, I have an idea of what you would do. So what I kind of would do with this is I would make it I would lean into the comedy more, but make it a comedy of reference rather than a comedy of slapstick. The comedy is how she reacts differently than the other visible people. Like, so far they've gone crazy. She gets her inhibitions break. So she just does whatever she wants. And it just ensues in chaos. She just drinks. She goes to the boss. The whole boss thing was hilarious and fun. Like that kind of stuff. The hilarity is her just acting out, but she slowly starts losing control. I'd get rid of the mob thing entirely. Even though some of the best moments were part of that. I would leave the professor as working for a guy. I'd leave that in there. I would not focus as much on it because they drag it out way too much at the beginning. I'd move into it faster, get to her a little quicker, and then just have a large chunk of the movie being her just like slowly escalating. She's escalating. At first it's kind of silly and funny, and then you're like, whoa, she's taking it a little too far. And then instead of mobsters and all that stuff, there's actually like a competing scientist who wants his work or thinks he stole his work. It's a rivalry. And they go in there to like they want the formula. They're behind, and so they kidnap her, and that whole scene where it's like the mob and all that stuff happens, but she goes ham on everyone. She actually there's this scene where in this one where she grabs the gun and you were like, blam, right? She grabs the gun and you're like, ha ha, here we go. It's going to be silly. And she hits one with the gun. You're like, ha ha. And then she turns around and just blows one away. And you're like, what the? And she turns around and blows another one away. And then she's just like taking them out. She just starts she's just lost freaking control. And she's just like, and it gets a little dark towards the end. And then I would end it with the guy coming, and he doesn't even recognize her anymore because she's just lost her mind. So it starts out as a hard comedy, becomes a dark comedy towards the end.
That could be interesting.
That's what I would do with it.
All right, you said that you had an idea of where I would go with it. Just roughly, what do you think?
I think you would go more down the psychological horror thing, but still use the inhibition thing. Because we both agreed that was really interesting from this one. Because it would be really boring a little bit in retreading if they just made her go crazy exactly the same way as the other guys. I liked the originality of her going crazy differently, where her inhibition's just gone. And you could do so much with that. But I figure you probably go more psychological thriller horror, where like she like actually starts losing her mind and like terrorizing people or whatever. But it's not due to her just going straight insane. She just, all the little thoughts in her head that she has, she just does. Straight from head to action without anything stopping it. That's kind of what I was thinking you would do.
Well, it's not.
Isn't it, John?
It's not.
Oh, okay. Well, what would you do with it? Because now I've done 2.
All right. So the things that I would do is I would kind of I'd kind of keep it relatively similar, but clean up the plot a bit. The other thing is that I would shorten the romantic kind of intrigue of the film from 75% of the film to about 50% of the film. But the thing is that I would make their dynamic a little bit more interesting. She is...
The point you just made actually is a really good point as to where this film fails. 75% of the film is like their romanticism, but nothing gets gained by it.
Yeah.
So much of the film is something that nothing really happens. You could cut the amount of time in half and get more out of it by just making it more believable. So I just wanted to cut you there because that's part of what makes this film rough, is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So much is focused on something that it doesn't do anything with.
Yeah. Okay, so about 50% of the film, I would probably focus on making it a little bit of a romantic comedy-esque feel. So
romantic comedy would be actually a really interesting twist.
See, so he's...
Okay, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, see?
Okay. All right, I'm interested. All right, tell me what you got.
Okay, so you kind of do like a romantic comedy kind of thing where instead of doing like a meet cute or things like that, he's this like really well-known, renowned playboy. Really go into that a bunch. And she's kind of I came up from nothing, blue collar, not like blue collar, but you know, like she's a working woman. I want to like keep it in the era. If I keep it in the era, she's just like a working woman or something like that. If I did like more of a modern era look at this, she would probably be more of a like go-getter. She's been working her way through college.
Yeah, you do it like a Hallmark film would be.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, the Hallmark idea where he's a playboy, she's a working girl from the city. You know, yeah, which is it's done to death because it works.
Yeah. And the thing is that she is like kind of like shy a bit, kind of like reclusive kind of thing, where she doesn't really go out and do anything. And people kind of point out the fact that, you know, you work really hard, you do all these different things, but you're not necessarily adventurous or something like that. Like you seem really restrained.
Right.
And what ends up happening is that like maybe a friend of her dares her, or puts her on a blind date or something like that, where the ad shows up and she's like, oh, you show up at this place and you just, that's like a matchmaker or something like that.
She's set up.
Yeah, she gets set up. And it's actually like the mad scientist who's working for the Playboy, but the Playboy is running out of money and is indebted to the mob.
Okay, that would have made more sense in this film if the mob was related to him. The plot of what their mob's motive was dumb in this. That was a way better motive for them. So you leave them in there, just give them a better reason for it.
Exactly. So he's like indebted to the mob, and the mad scientist is there, and he's like desperately trying to get him something to get his money, but it's like he's squandering the money.
Right. And it's the law of diminishing of the sunken cost fallacy,
like diminutive returns.
He keeps putting money in him, but he's like, I've already put so much money in him, I can't back out now. I've got to keep doing it.
Yeah. So he ends up turning her invisible and all these different things. The romantic comedy aspect is as they talk and start doing different things, she just despises him because he's like really famous for being a playboy. All he is vain. It's
which
all
they
about
did
looks.
do,
It's
but
all
they
about,
didn't do it well.
Yeah. But he's really about like looks is like the thing. Is like he's just like women are something to look at. I get the beautiful woman on my arms and stuff like that, and I'm getting sick of the game because it's just because pretty and the publicity and stuff like that.
Look
women
at me,
are to
I'm
be
John.
looked at.
I understood the assignment. No, I jest a little bit, but that is exactly what I think the plot of the movie was supposed to do, was trying to do.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're describing is what I felt was the point, but they didn't elaborate well enough to get there.
Yeah.
Like he does show that he focuses on looks because like he's trying to imagine what she looks like, and there's a lot of scenes where he's really trying to visualize her, but because he can't, he's forced to talk to her.
Yeah.
And gets to know her and realizes that there's more to women than looks.
Yeah.
And that's why he gets attached to her. I get that was the point, but I had to add that to the film because it wasn't actually there.
Yeah. So yeah, it would just be one of those things where they kind of like have banter back and forth because like she's trying to figure out how to become uninvisible, but because she's invisible and he doesn't know her or see her,
right?
She's more open with him and honest with him, where it's like, I'm just talking to you, and he's starting to listen. He's like, oh, actually, like, you know, she's well educated, she's well spoken, she has her own opinions, she has her own ideas. Women aren't just like to look at.
Right.
And he finds her really interesting, and he becomes attracted to her because of her personality,
right?
Her mind. And the thing is, though, that her personality is because she doesn't have inhibitions. He doesn't have any idea what I look like. Why would I care? Maybe I work at his company. Maybe I don't work at his company. He doesn't know.
Right.
So you kind of dive into that. The mob eventually comes to collect, and what they find out is that the woman's invisible, and they go, oh, we can use this for a heist. And throughout the film, she's been showing that she's becoming a little bit more unhinged. She's no inhibition. She's like, I'm going to be invisible forever. I might as well do whatever I want. Maybe she starts shoplifting. Maybe she starts messing with people, and it becomes a little bit too violent at times. Like she really takes
the line.
Yeah, like she takes out her frustration on her boss, but it's not just like she takes her frustration out on him. There's like a big misunderstanding. She pushes him or something like that, and he actually gets more seriously injured.
That would like that scene where she puts him in the window, but then she accidentally bumps him out the window or something like that.
It would be something like that where she pushes him out the window and kicks him, but she doesn't just like kick him. She actually like breaks his ankle or something, like hurts him.
Yeah.
So she's starting to lose kind of control of like where she's at, and her inhibitions are starting to like catch up to her. And the mob comes and they're like, okay, well, we have a heist. We need to turn somebody invisible, but they can't figure out how to turn men invisible. Like they can't get their guy invisible. So what they do is they just go, oh, okay, cool. You seem to like the Playboy, like to the girl. You seem to kind of like the Playboy. Well, if you don't do the heist for us, you don't get the boy. And then she's like, okay, I'll do the heist. You can, and I get the boy, but I also want a cut. I'm doing all the work. I deserve a cut. And then you have this like tension of maybe she just abandons him and takes the money because her inhibitions are gone. Like her inhibition is taken over.
Right. How would you end it? What would be the final cut? Because this one, it was weird. Mine has her literally just like laughing maniacally after she's murdered a bunch of people in cold blood.
Well, simple. You just suddenly snap to, she's visible and they have a baby. No, I would have it more along the lines of they start talking and she comes back for him and she's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to be visible again, but I want to be with you. And I know I want to be with you. Can you accept the fact that you might not be able to see me? And then he's like, well, of course, I like you. It's never been about your looks. It's not about the fantasy. It's about you. I want to spend time with you. It doesn't matter what you look like. And I would kind of just leave it there where they've kind of accepted each other and their relationship is going to move forward from there.
And not have her actually turn visible, but leave it open-ended.
I'd either leave it open-ended or depending on maybe like screenings or something like that, I might add that she becomes visible because they finally break through and when they see each other, it's just like that you just see in their eyes that they're meant to be together. But
okay, I can dig that. I do like the idea. The idea of yours is fun. I like the idea of leaving the mob but giving him a reason. I couldn't think of a good way to make the mob work. I didn't think about making him indebted to him. That was clever. Because like I liked the mob, I just couldn't figure out a way to make them work the way I think they did so bad it was hard.
It's such a weird decision to be like, the reason the mob is curious is because they found an obscure ad that just so happens to be something that the mob boss may be interested in.
And they took it seriously.
Yes.
No one else did. It's wild. I don't know. That was dumb.
No, what would have been funny is like if the mob boss was just like, yes, I want to become invisible because my ex-wife is in my house and I miss my cat.
Gosh. All right.
Like lean into the absurdity.
Right.
You know?
It was just weird. It wasn't even absurd fun. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was something else.
This one was weird. I'm hoping that the next film doesn't lean into the comedy and goes back to more of like, well, actually it should. It's the Wolfman. The next film's Wolfman. Finally, we're going to see Wolfman. I'm so excited.
Let's do this.
All right. Anyway, guys, that is our entertainment recast in regards to 1940s The Invisible Woman. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like. Also, be sure to leave us some comments. Let us know what your thoughts of this video are, what your thoughts of The Invisible Woman 1940 are in general, or even just what you thought about our rewritten plots. Otherwise, be sure to subscribe if you like movies, because we love movies and we do a lot of stuff regarding movies all month long, so you don't want to miss out. Otherwise, be sure to share us with your friends, and if you want more things from us other than videos, we also have Facebook at Entertainment Rebooted. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching.